Afternoon and welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. Today it's my pleasure to have author Tara Kaushal ma'am on our show. Tara Kaushal ma'am is a novelist, writer, and a media consultant. Thank you very much, ma'am, for agreeing to this interview and welcome to the Prode.
Thanks for having me, Ritwij.
Okay, ma'am. My first question to you would be that tell us something about your recent book, Why Men Rape, and what is it exactly about?
So, Why Men Rape? An Indian Undercover Investigation is a book that I started working on in 2013. Um, and it's only recently released. For it, I went undercover with 9 men who have raped across the country to find out what caused them to commit sexual violence. And for this, I investigated their home, religion, Bollywood, media, like the works. It was a
Yeah.
deep ethnological study of these men. And it was only recently released on the 22nd of June.
Okay. So what made you to write a book on this sensitive topic and how much time it took?
So I have to say that this book, I believe, is a culmination of a long personal and professional journey. So I think when I moved to Noida, when my parents moved to Noida from Navy Nagars, across the
Oh,
country, suddenly I found that they were very concerned about my hemlines and my deadlines, and I was 12 years old and I was being harassed on the way to school and things like that. So I think the question that I started asking then, which is, why should the actions of men have such an impact on my life?
okay.
That's
Yeah.
a question that eventually, many, many years later, 25 years later, has led to this book, which is my first book. But I think if you actually ask me, the incident that triggered me to write this book was the Delhi gang rape of
Yeah.
2012.
Yeah.
Because although I was writing about gender and sexuality and gender violence, and that's what I've written about for most of my career, I realized that although everyone was deeply impacted by the Delhi gang rape,
Yeah.
the girl who used to travel to Delhi University by bus was me. So I
Okay.
could have been Jyoti Singh Pandey just from 10 years ago. So it really impacted me very deeply. And I think that's when I decided that I would write this book. But I realized that it would be expensive, not only to do it the way I wanted to do it, but
Yeah.
because I would not earn in the time that I was writing the book. So what ended up doing is from 2013, I started reading and planning and saving for it. And eventually in 2015, I took it on full time.
Okay, so what were the main challenges that you faced while writing this book and as well as while investigating?
So I think every different stage of writing this book has had its own challenges, whether it was, when I took it on full time, whether it was the crowdfunding, which was a lot more time consuming than I expected,
Yeah.
or whether it was listening to survivor stories, because a lot of survivors came to me and told me their stories. So, whether it was that, or listening to these men tell me their, acts of sexual violence completely casually and blasely. Um, these were all issues, but I have to say, and I've thought about this quite a bit, as challenging as everything else has been for writing this book, to me, the actual act of writing was the most challenging. Because, every morning, and I wrote throughout 2019, but every morning or quite often, I just wake up saying, damn, when will this book, end? Realizing and me being
Yeah.
made doubly unhappy by the fact that it would only end if I finished it. So it was just, I mean, so the writing was a big challenge.
Okay. So from Nirbhaya to Hyderabad, like we have seen a lot of cruel rape cases of rape in our country, and every now and then we come to know about some sort of rape case. So what do you think? Like, what according to you is the actual reason behind the increase of rape cases in India?
Let's consider what has changed. And what has changed is A, the access to pornography that
Yeah,
has increased. Uh, B, there's this idea called contagion. And contagion basically means that the media transmits ideas. So every time that we hear of sexual violence or increased sexual violence, it allows more people to consider doing it,
yeah,
right? So that has changed. There is definitely an increase in sexual violence, and the final reason for this, and it's been found across the world, that as women get more empowered, there is an increase in violence against them. Because if you see violence as a way of controlling women, or keeping places, or making them too afraid to go out to work, or making them listen to what you want them to listen to, then as women become more empowered, there is an increase in violence. So I think because of these three factors, pornography, contagion, and women's empowerment, sexual violence has definitely increased.
okay, so like we have seen the examples of Nirbhaya rape case victims and Nirbhaya rape case, and we have seen that how much time it took to punish them. So how do you say this? Is rape an outcome of an evil mentality or a poor administration? What are your thoughts on this?
No, I do not have a law and order approach to gender violence. I don't think, and I keep saying this to a lot of people who come to me and say, administration ka fault hai, law and order. I keep saying this, that tomorrow if someone came to you, Ritwij, or to me and said, you can murder someone for 24 hours, you can commit a murder, and you would get away with it, you would have no consequences. In all probability, somebody like you or somebody like I would say, hey, thanks so much, but I don't want to do that. It's not part of my morals.
Yeah.
So why would someone want to rape? Why do we have this, after the fact kind of attitude towards rape? And we should look at a prevention attitude towards rape, which is, why would someone want to rape? So I don't see this as a law and order problem. It is, of course, it would be great if there was more punishment, but my idea is that morals exist within the person, within a culture, and we need to address that before we start looking at the cure.
Okay. So you believe that it's an outcome of an evil mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So which type of society you believe is ideal for a woman, a conservative one or a liberal one?
Oh, of course, the liberal one. There are no two ways about that. The fact that you and I are sitting here having this conversation is a result of feminism,
Yeah.
is a result of a liberal society. Um, the problem with a conservative society, there are many problems, but one of them is there is very little violence in a conservative society. Now, why is that? It's because violence is the sign of a problem or a change in society. Absolute peace is the sign of a status quo. Now, I just discussed this with you when we were talking about the increase of violence.
Yeah.
But when women are not accepting the roles that were determined for them, that's why there is an increase in violence. But what were those roles? We were always expected to accept marital rape, accept violence. Divorce is increasing. Why? And the RSS chief, Mr. Bhagwat, has said that divorce is increasing because of increase in education. But what does that mean? Women are more aware of our human rights.
Yeah.
So liberal society is very clearly better for a women, for women in general. Sorry, and I do believe that that's why I feel that women who vote for the BJP or women who follow religion are just basically axing their own feet, because no religion or any systems that have been made by man prioritize the rights of anything other than the man
Yeah.
or any gender other than the man. So definitely a liberal society is much better for a woman than a conservative one.
Okay. So how important is the Me Too movement and how it has helped in bringing a change in our society?
So the Me Too movement is super important. It allowed women's experiences to come to the forefront. So far, we've always believed that such things don't happen to women like us, or and are not done by men like us or the men that we know. All of that is a myth, and all of that is busted for the world to see. There is also a certain amount of camaraderie between women of all classes, because
Yeah.
again, people believe that वो हमारे घरों में नहीं होता, but obviously it's happening in our houses. This is stuff that was not talked about. um, it's got a lot of limitations. It's not enough, but it has certainly allowed women to realize that they are not alone, that this
Yeah.
is not normal, it is not acceptable. And also, it allows men to be a little more aware that there are consequences of their actions.
Yeah.
If, again, as I said, you cannot always address the prevention aspect, and
Yeah.
there will always be men who think that this is okay to do, that it is okay to sexually harass women or it is okay to rape women. um, they've so far had no consequences to this action or to their
Okay.
actions in general. At least men know that there are consequences. At least there are systems coming into place to address workplace sexual harassment. So I think Me
Okay.
Too is very important, but it is certainly not enough.
Okay. So in India, we have also seen now several fake cases of rape imposed on males just for some revenge or political benefit or things like that. So what is your take on this matter? Like, how do you say this as a feminist?
Okay, so the rape law is being abused. Okay, it has been found that in about one third of the cases, um, men who've had consensual sexual
Yeah.
relationships with girls of their same age are being slapped with kidnapping and abuse charge and rape charges by the parents who are using the law to break up the relationship. Okay?
Basically, the age of consent in India is 18 years, but in many countries it's like 16 years. In USA and UK, it's 16.
As it should be,
Yeah.
because we're an increasingly sexualized society. Kids are having sex younger and younger. There's so much porn. Look at Bollywood. And then some fuddy-duddy old men sitting in parliament have decided कि 18 तक sex नहीं करना. And the other problem also is that there is the idea that if a boy and a girl have consensual sex, it's always the boy who raped the girl. It's
Yeah.
always rape, and it's always the boy who raped the girl. So there are problems. So in this, the rape law is being misused. There are problems in the rape law, like the age of consent is 18 and it shouldn't be. So there are problems in the rape law. But the fact that there is the law is being abused and there are cracks and crevices in the law leads to this exaggerated myth that most rape cases are false. Now, all laws are abused. Every law in the world is abused. But it is only when it comes to rape that the first reaction is, ye to fake case hai.
Yeah.
Now, whenever somebody tells me that this is true, that this is happening, my reaction is, do you know how many how many rape cases are underreported or unreported?
Yeah.
The figure is 99.1% of rape is unreported. So a lot more men are getting away with it than are being falsely accused. And even when we make a false accusation argument, um, it's not like, the even if you make it at an FIR stage, it's not like the judge is going to not is going to convict. So I refuse by that the false rape complaint argument is so important that it derails the conversation about real rape. And that is very real because again, 99.1% of rape is unreported.
Okay, so
So
how would you define the mentality of a person who has committed rape? Like you have done a lot of investigation. Like, can you share a one particular instance?
so I really think that one of the biggest problems, and I keep saying this, is that there is a very flawed understanding or a different understanding of what is rape across, like it varies from person to person. Okay, and what has seemed to happen after the Delhi gang rape is that people believe वो rape है.
Yeah.
Okay, Shakti Kapoor idea of rapists, five men who gang up on you in the bus, and this is it, and it's always violent, and it's always dramatic, and it's always so black and white. That is not rape. We are talking in our circles, we're talking about stealthing, we're talking about, a coercion. Not only are we talking about no means no, but yes means yes. But we are still, this is not a common idea of consent and rape.
Yeah.
Like even marriage rape, I've heard a lot of people say, shadi ke baad rape kaisa. But
Yeah.
in circles like ours, we know that whether or not it's illegal or legal, a person's autonomy or sexual autonomy is not signed away when you get married. You still have sexual autonomy. You are not the possession of your husband. So these things, these nuances are really important, and it's important for people to recognize that rape is a violation not of the possession of another man, but it is the violation of the sexual autonomy of an individual woman. And these are, small things that I wish, I mean, it seems small, I say,
Yeah.
but it's such a basic, it's completely disparate across the country. We think
Okay.
bachao, bachao, and people are screaming. But 95% of women are raped by men they knew.
Yeah.
So all of these ideas need to change.
Okay. So, are you satisfied with the kind of media coverage that has been done in several rape cases, including the Nirbhaya and the Hyderabad one?
Ah, see, there are certain organizations that are very gender sensitive.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can say this for a fact when it comes to the English media. There are some who are constantly being aware of the nuances of language. Um, and they are evolving as the conversation on gender violence evolves. The media coverage is also evolving. There are certain organizations that, or I would say most of it, that doesn't pay attention to the sensitivity required when you're covering gender. Um, and I will be very clear that when you have people like Arnab Goswami demanding that, hang the rapists, and, demanding instant solutions to complex problems. They are the reason why a lot of encounter killings are actually happening,
Actually, yeah,
because they are, stirring the pot. They
yeah,
think that this instant justice is a solution. It is not.
not a
We
solution.
we cannot bypass the law of the land. We are not a banana republic, and the media is, in insensitive reporting, the media is making us a banana republic. It is making us think that it is normal to fight, and to have these instant solutions and to demand them, and then they celebrate these instant karma kind of killings. I think that's ridiculous. So no, I am not at all satisfied. I just think that in a little feminist corner of the internet, there are media organizations that are doing it right,
Yeah.
but that is not the norm, whether in English, or in regional and Hindi, other languages.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on the on the encounter killing of Hyderabad rape case? People who are accused of Hyderabad rape case.
Look, I'm a legalist. I believe that you have to follow the law. Now, is the fact that the law is slow and that it is such a daunting process, is that causing us as a culture to want such instant justification and not instant justification, but instant, is it causing us to demand instant kind of justice? Yes, it is. Is there a flaw in the execution of the law? Is there delays? Do we not trust the police? All of these are factors. But does that mean that we bypass the law? Absolutely not. We are making the police super powerful, and that means that we are okay with, extrajudicial murders, and these are murders.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this is acceptable. I don't think that it is fair. I don't think that we should be okay with it. I mean, the Hyderabad police was garlanded for murdering those men. Why
And
is
people
that?
celebrate it. Even the Vikas Dubey case, people are celebrating it.
Well, that's because we don't trust our legal system. We don't trust our legal system, and that is a fault of the legal system. But does that mean that we bypass it, or does that mean that we correct the legal system? I think we should correct it, because we cannot live in a police state. It's
Yeah.
not acceptable. We're a democracy. So no, I don't approve at all. I don't approve it of capital punishment in general, but I certainly don't approve of the police just,
Killing.
making instant decisions and then killing
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
not
Okay. So
not
I would
okay.
okay. So I would conclude by asking that what will be your message for all young budding authors who are planning to write a book in this genre?
Oh wow. If you're going to write about rape, I think you need to study it, because even as somebody who wrote so much about gender violence, and who had studied feminism in college, it was a it was so different than the reality that I encountered. So talking about it as first person, as Me Too has, that's one aspect, one way of doing it. But if you actually want to write a research heavy book, you need to study it both in terms of all the literature that is already available in the world about it, but also in terms of, um, all of these people that you're studying. India is very, very different and very, very nuanced, and you cannot paint with too broad a brush, because everything you say about India, the reverse is also true.
Yeah.
You want to say India is a conservative country. There's enough proof to say that. You want to say that it's not a conservative country. I mean, Sunny Leone is your top Bollywood movie star. So that's all. So everything you want to say about India is true, and you have to ensure that you represent it correctly.
Okay.
So a lot of studying, a lot of actually seeing the grassroots of the country before you discuss only what you know, which is a very small slice of what this country actually is.
Okay. So thank you very much, ma'am, for agreeing to. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining, and thank you for taking out the time.
Thanks so much, Ritwij. It's
Thank
been
you.
a great interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.